How are you people? Are you good? It's been a wonderful, wonderful morning. So I'm going to speak a little bit about just a lead to this little dialogue that I'm going to have with these wonderful students that you see here on stage. And basically what I'm going to tell you is that for the last quarter of the century, when it comes to school education, we have been in a particular path around the world, somewhere in a little bit different ways than the others. But basically the interesting question is that what has this path looked like, and has it been a right one? And as you can probably see in the title over there, that my argument is that it has not been the appropriate path, and it's definitely the wrong path from here to the future. If you listen to what the people were saying before me, it's very clear that we need not just a little bit reformed idea, we need a paradigm shift. We need a completely different way of thinking about these things. So I've been part of those scholars around the world during the last 20 years, really, trying to identify what those trends within school education have been. And there are different ways to looking at this, this kind of a global movement or education reform movement. What you see there is just a kind of a simplified idea, some of the common things that we have seen in most countries around the world, certainly in most countries within the OECD, that is the wealthier part of the world. The one of them is that we have seen education systems relying more and more heavily on competition. Students competing against one another, schools are competing over students, sometimes over smart kids, and the schools are competing within the systems, and eventually the school systems have been put in a competition. I'm from Finland originally. I know very well, for example, how to compete, or how countries have been competing between Sweden and other countries in the Scandinavia. But the competition has been a kind of a defining characteristics. Then we have seen the increasing focus on some academic subjects like reading, writing, and mathematics, or numeracy and literacy as it is called. And then finally, the growing number of examinations and standardized assessments that have been used also for the accountability purposes, meaning that if the school or teacher doesn't do a good job, you may lose your status, or you may lose your job, or even worse. And this has led into certain things that I'm going to show you a little bit more about. We have seen the declining student engagement steadily since the year 2000, or even before that. Student well-being is another one that is at stake right now, and there has been decline in that as well. And also the equity, if you listen to the panel previously, equity or equality has been in a downhill. So the conclusion here is that this has not been the best possible way to build or lead education systems. We need to rethink. But I'm going to show you some data as well. That is a little bit what you saw from Anna, but I try to show you some big trends. Like what you're going to see here is 3 trends since the year 2000 in global education, probably more within the OECD, that includes student achievement, not necessarily learning, but student achievement in science, mathematics, and reading literacy, student well-being, and then the cost per child. This is a little bit different statistics that I'm going to show you what you saw in Anna's, because this is more about how much money we are spending per student, not the proportion part of the education budgets. So this is roughly the evolution that we have seen during the last 20 years since the year 2000. Some of these curves are going up, some of them are going down. Now I'm going to ask you that which one do you think the curve represents of these 3 variables there, learning, well-being, or cost, that is having the steepest decline? What do you think that is? That's the well-being, of course. How about the only one that is going up? That's the cost. But that's the cost per student, okay. So this is one thing that, if you look at these things, you don't need to be a Nobel laureate to understand that, this is not good. We're spending more money and getting less outcomes out of this. I'm going to show you another one that is even more kind of a problematic thing and calls for not just the reform of education, but transformation. We need to we need to think very differently about how to face this future that somebody beautifully in the morning said is coming to us faster than ever before, that we need to be aware of this. Now, this data is from Australia, but this may be the situation in many other countries as well. Now, these two dots there, the blue and red, represent two different typical students in a year 3, the 3rd grade. So they are about 9 years old. So they have been in school for 2 years, maybe a little bit more. The blue one that you see over there is a typical child from a more affluent family, where the parents have better education and more family income. Whereas the red dot represents the child who comes from the more socioeconomically disadvantaged family. Now look at this. These kids have been in a school, they may have been in early childhood education at some point, probably the red dot less than the blue, but in a year 3, grade 3, the gap between those two students is already about 2 years worth of school education. That's a big one. So schools were created earlier to equalize these gaps. We heard that also earlier in the morning. So when these kids, I'm going to show you what happens to these two kids, typical kids from the different equity cohorts, when they travel through 3 years of schooling. 3 years of primary education and then lower secondary education. This is what it looks like in Australia. So what we see that rather than leveling these differences, these outcome differences in school, we see that it's expanding, and not just a little bit, but a lot. So they have 5-year, on average, 5-year learning gap at the grade 9. Huge. This is not what the education should be all about. So that's why I'm saying, putting these things together, and there's of course many other stories, we need to have a new paradigm, new assumptions, beliefs, and models for how to educate kids. We have heard a lot about those things already earlier in the morning. So this is this could be a much more complicated story to go into the detail, but just to keep this simple, that what this new paradigm could entail. First of all, I think that it should have a very strong element of collaboration, cooperation, sharing, doing things together as a school, as a student, and at the level of the education systems. Secondly, I think we should focus much more on the whole child. We heard about whole brain earlier this morning. This whole child means that it's not just the academic knowledge and learning that we need. We need to develop skills and characters and many other things as a whole child, including well-being. And then the trust-based responsibility instead of test-based accountability. That is building trust in students within the school and trust in teachers within our countries and communities and societies to do the right thing. If we do that, and many other things, of course, that comes with those things, we're probably going to see an education system in the future that is building much more on enhancing personal relationships. Again, within and between the students, but also between students and adults in the school, and between students and the community around the world. We see much more holistic learning and well-being rather than training and preparing young people in different disciplines and subjects. And finally, we're probably going to see students that are much more engaged in their own learning. And Lynn was speaking earlier about the motivation, the intrinsic motivation. This is the only way that we can see schools in the future, when students are more engaged what they do, to be also more motivated and curious and interested in what they do. Building a future education system is much more complex and complicated than this, but I just wanted to give this as a lead now when we move to the conversation with these wonderful young students about what should we do and how the future of education and future of learning would look like. So, what do you think? Can I have the first, a really quick round with you, starting from you, Jian, if you can say where you're from, what do you do currently, and go through this panel, and then we start the conversation.
Hi, I'm Jian Kim from Daejeon Science High School for the Gifted. I'm now learning science and mathematics in high school.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jay Ryu. I'm first grade in high school of IASA, which is Indian Academy of Science and Art, and I specialize in computer programming and biology. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jian Hong from Seoul National University, and I currently major electrical and computer science.
Thank you. This is an easy panel for me because there are two Gians and one Jay, so I try to remember your names. Let's start with this little. You were here with me when I was giving this introduction, and I was calling for paradigm shift or revolution, if you wish, in school education in the future. Do you see this in the same way based on your experience? And I'm not necessarily just thinking about the schools here in Korea or schools that you go, but in general, when you think about schooling and learning for the future, do you think we need a radical change or just a little bit reforms here and there? Jay, yeah, go ahead.
Yes. In the school I am attending now, I take two kinds of educations. One is a class format where the teacher gives us knowledge, and the other is a research activity where students have the freedom to do what they want, so they can have autonomous learning. And from this, I learned that giving students freedom can lead to very creative results. So I think the education should give students freedom to learn what they need and learn what they want.
Wonderful. Jian, what do you think?
So I don't know if you already know, but private education in Korea is really a huge market, and that's because there are like a lot of chicken races, the huge chicken race going on for the tutoring and mentoring systems. So I think we need to change current education form to put down those kind of irregular high education like chicken races.
And what would it look like from your point of view?
So I was part of it. I was part of it in the past, and like after school, every students, even students from elementary school, goes to academy to learn mathematics and like Korean, English, and all sort of things. So it's kind of absurd, I think.
Good. How about you, Jian?
I think everything is going on so fast these days, including education. And I think education should slow down a little bit. There is less time to think more deeply or creatively because of fast learning. And fast learning can have also advantages that we can learn a lot of things and think about a lot of things, but I think we have more time to play and do other things we want to do.
Right. So, you know, we are mostly old people that have been speaking here so far. So my question, including myself, of course, you know, the question to you is that, and this is a bold question, is that do you think that people like we, that we really understand the kind of education that you need, or let alone the people younger than you, or should we have more conversation with students and children in thinking about this future of learning? Do you think we are doing the right thing right now? These guys are saying, next question, please. Now, this is your moment to say, well, how we should build this journey from here to the future learning. Yeah, go ahead.
The ones who make education policies are grown-ups, like
Just say old.
yeah, old people.
Thank you.
As you say. So, like, but the ones who actually feel the results of those kind of education policies are us or even younger students. So, I think they should listen more to those students who actually take education.
Right. How about you, Jay?
Yeah, I kind of agree. And now I am attending a science-focused high school, so I get to learn what I want more than other students. But in normal high schools, the education isn't changing as fast as the society is changing. So I think adults need to put more care to follow the changes of the world in education.
Right. Good point. Jian.
I really agree with their ideas, and I think that adults should listen to more to students and know what they really want to learn and help them do what they want.
Right, good. So it would be good to have more of your voice in the building the future, right? That's what I'm
Yes.
hearing.
Yes.
Okay, good. Please take this to heart. It's an important thing. You know, one of the things that, again, you know, continuing the same line of thinking of not being a digital native, if that is a proper term, you know, compared to you, that you have a very different view to technology and what it can do and what it should not do. We had a little chat in the green room about the AI, and we heard earlier here people talking about the future of artificial intelligence and what it brings. Could you share with us a little bit how you see the emergence of artificial intelligence and ChatGPTs and all those robots that we saw earlier here? That is it something that you see optimistically, like it's really going to help us to address these grand challenges and issues, or do you have some concerns or some advice to all old people here what we should not not do? Any one of you? Chai, you're almost saying something, so go ahead.
Okay, I was thinking, but I
Think
get a
aloud.
lot of help from artificial intelligence in school. I use ChatGPT to do my homework sometimes, and so I think it's very helpful in my life. But if too much of our life is repaired by AIs, I'm worried that the connection between people and communication between friends and teachers might decrease, and that won't be that good for human society. So, like, artificial intelligence gives help to our life, but we shouldn't replace too much of us with it.
Do you think that you understand enough about that part of technology and AI to be able to regulate your own use of it? Do you have a feeling? Do you know what I mean? That you know enough about what the artificial intelligence or chat GPTs are about, or do you need some guidance or help from outside?
From now, I do think I need to learn more about the artificial intelligence to use it right.
I think we all do. Jian.
Yeah, so as an engineering student, my friends and I am not really good at writing, as you all know. So if you take a writing class in university, we use a lot of we use ChatGPT a lot to compromise to do that. But even though we are not good at writing and we can use help from the AIs, but I think we still should know how to write by ourselves. So we need to grow our abilities to write ourselves, and after we gain some abilities, we can use the help from AI also. So it is important to restrain some, not to overuse the AI to
wonderful.
gain the creativity.
Thank you. Jian, do you have a view on this?
Yes, in my school we use lots of ChatGPTs to do our homeworks and do some researches, and it's really helpful to find out more ideas that I can't think of. ChatGPT helps us think of new ideas, but I think too much use of it can decrease our creativity and to think more deeply. So I think we should know the right amount of using it.
Thank you. We are almost on time, but I have one last question for you before we break for lunch. And here's my question for you. That one day, probably most of you, maybe all of you, you're going to have your own children, your own family. It's going to be in the future, of course. If you think about the dream school for your own child, what, just in one word, what that school should look like so that you would be happy and delighted about the opportunity to send your own child to that school? Just one word or one sentence max. And while you think, I'm asking this question because often in these conversations, it's so easy to talk about other children's education rather than your own. But if you think about your own child, that's why I'm asking you. It may be difficult to imagine, but Jian, what is the school like in the future for you?
Harvard.
No, you should say Melbourne University.
Yeah, but it was joke. I think the ideal school for my children is the school that doesn't keep the students stressed out, because I was really stressed out in my high school period. So
beautiful, thank you. Jake?
In one word, I'd like to say, no, not in one word, let's just go a sentence. In normal schools, education is always focused on the average student. And in my case, when I was in middle school and elementary school, I wasn't really satisfied by the education I got. So in my case, I chose to come to a specialized high school. But I think that in schools, teachers should provide specialized education matched to each children's knowledge level and their likes, hobbies. So we should take care to each student, not just focus on education with the average students.
Thank you. Jian, you have a last word.
I hope future school helps children think creatively and think freely what they want to think and learn whatever they want and make children happy.
Beautiful. Please join me thanking these amazing students here. Thank you.